Well, let's go to Brussels. We can speak to Marc Pierini, who's a visiting scholar at Carnegie Europe, previously EU ambassador and head of delegation to Turkey. Thanks for joining us on Impact. Has Erdoğan got the stronger hand here, do you think?
Well, it looks like it at first sight, but in the end, we have to see the reality. I think Turkey and the EU are in the same situation. The situation is unsustainable as it is now for both Turkey and the EU. Naturally, this being election time in Turkey with general elections or repeat elections on November 1st, the president of Turkey is going to ask for a lot. He's going to describe the efforts of his country for the past 4 years as remarkable, and in a way they are remarkable. 2 million people, as you just explained, 15% more or less of whom are in state-run camps. The others are on their own in cities and towns and renting and spending a lifetime of accommodation. So we basically have two issues here. One is, as was depicted, the naive, quote-unquote, attitude of European politicians. Please keep them in Turkey. The second issue is fighting the traffickers. And the traffickers, in my own calculation, very simple calculation, are making, not in Turkey, but anywhere between Syria and Germany, 1 to 2 billion euros this year. So this has to be controlled.
And when it comes to the no-fly zone that he's been advocating for several months now, hasn't he? I mean, do you think he's got the bargaining position to try and get EU leaders to actually put their support behind something like that? Because that would, for many people, especially given the sort of crowded skies over Syria now, potentially an even greater escalation.
I think the no-fly zone is the good idea of yesterday. It was proposed a long time ago by Turkey. The US and the Europeans didn't want to entertain it, and now it's virtually out of question with the Russian deployment in Latakia. The Russians have decided to shore up the Assad regime. They are very strongly advocating Syrian sovereignty on its own territory. Therefore, they're not going to accept any infringement. I think from a Turkish point of view, of course, it would be a good thing if they could send back some refugees to the Syrian territory, but that's not the main motive of the Turkish request. The Turkish request is essentially to create a zone where the Syrian Kurds would not have control, and that there would be international control. That is, in my view, the main motivation. In any case, it's not going to work.
OK, what about a softening perhaps in the tone, the rhetoric coming from some EU leaders about the increasingly perceived autocratic nature of Recep Tayyip Erdoğan, the assaults on PKK positions as well? Is that something which would be seen as a win by Ankara, if only for the sort of the atmospherics?
I think for the electoral atmospherics, it looks very good. But in today's meetings in the two buildings behind me, we're not going to discuss Turkey's accession, because the rule of law in Turkey has gone down so tremendously in the past few months that it is not conceivable to make a lot of progress there. So what is going to be discussed is realpolitik. Turkey needs the EU because trade, investment, refugees, and the EU needs Turkey because of trade, investment, and refugees. So what we're going to see is a general agreement under which tomorrow a high-level mission will go to Ankara.
Marc Pierini, we must end it there. Thank you very much indeed for joining us on Impact.